WhiskyJason here, whiskey from the viewpoint of an American over here in Germany tasting rare and exotic whiskey. This used to be more widely available, now the price has shot up. Longmorn 16-year-old single malt Scotch whiskey, non-chilled filtered, 48%, natural color, does not say anything about that on the label. But look at this nice little packaging. There's little magnets here, and you open this up and you pull out this bottle. Look at this, we have a leather little thing at the bottom, a ring. Today, we would not do that, now would we? Talking about environmental friendliness and so on, absolutely not. This was decadence. This was back there. This actually, I must admit, well done, well done. I always take a look at the bottle codes. I don't know about you, but Diageo has some of the worst bottle codes in the world. But look, I can actually read exactly when this was filled. It says here, 2016 on June 15th at 4:13 p.m. Yay! Well done, well done, well done. Very, very nice. All right, and there's actually, talking about environmental protection here, there's this little piece of plastic in here to keep that leather thing from scratching or whatever. I don't know. All right. So, what do you pay for this bottle? If you can even find it any place. If you find an old dusty, buy it. All right? So, not without reason, is here from the Whiskey Tribe. So, this is the favorite whiskey here of, wow, Jason, come on. Of the dwarf. That's not fair. This is the favorite whiskey of Daniel Whittington from the Whiskey Tribe. And not without reason, he calls this his favorite whiskey. So people every once in a while try to find a bottle and bring it over to him. Now, I'm going to pour this into the glass, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about the distillery in Glenlossie. What? What does Glenlossie have to do with Longmorn? Wait and see. I'm going to use this beautiful book here. All right, so in the first half of the 18th century, distilleries were usually founded by a single farmer or landowner. Makes sense. Towards the end of the century, local businessmen and blenders often joined forces to open a new distillery. That was the case with Glenlossie, and the people involved is a virtual who is who of the Scotch whisky industry at that time. The best known was John Duff. Roy Duff? Aquavite? John Duff, who knows? Who had a background as a manager at Glendronach. Very, very good. After 10 years at Glenlossie, he went abroad for a few years, unsuccessfully tried to build distilleries in South Africa and Kentucky. And when he returned to Scotland, he got together with two of his Glenlossie colleagues, George Thompson and Charles Cherie, and they founded Longmorn. Ah, looky there. Isn't that cool? All right, the Longmorn distilleries, and 4 years later, they founded Ben Riach. So I was actually at Ben Riach, and then I drove over to Longmorn. Ben Riach has a visitor center. It wasn't open on the Saturday that I was there. Boo. Longmorn belongs to Chivas Regal, and so if you go to Chivas Regal distilleries, you first go to the Glenlivet. Beautiful, beautiful distillery, wonderful food, eating facilities, as well as warehousing and great tour. Then the second one they want to push and help is Abelauer. Abelauer, beautiful, beautiful tasting room, great tiny little thing. You actually stand behind a steel cage where it says Psst, whiskey sleeping, but then you go back into the tasting rooms and it's a wonderful, wonderful thing. But Longmorn does not have a visitor center, and so you can't go actually visiting it. All right, so after they did the Ben Riach, Alexander Allen left Glenlossie, became part owner of Taliska, and also later at Dalhousie, together with Roderick Kemp, who bought Macallan. And John Hopkins, a bottler and blender from Glasgow, took over Tobermory in 1890 and later founded the Speyburn Distillery. Wow. So all these legends of the whiskey industry here. So over at Longmorn, We have a theoretical capacity of 4.5 million liters of alcohol a year. They're basically working 5 days a week, according to this book, before COVID happened, and they're producing about 3.5 million liters. They have 8 wash stills and slash spirit stills, so 8 stills in total. Now, the interesting thing is Longmorn is very, very popular in Japan. Why? Once again, I'm going to read from my nice book here. Masataka Takasuru, often called the father of Japanese whiskey making, spent a week at the distillery in April 1919. He had been sent to Scotland by his employer to learn how to make the whiskey and made a short internship at Longmorn. 1 week. All right. Back in Japan, he helped build the Yamazaki distillery, and a few years later, he founded his own distillery, Yoichi, which in many ways was inspired by what he saw at Longmorn. So one of the main reasons we cannot get Longmorn 16 anymore is because of Japan. Yay! Isn't that great? All right, so what am I going to compare it to? I paid 128 for this. I've seen it for 200 euros. I just found a site online for 99 euros, and I think I'm going to go buy a bottle. This cost about 80 euros over here. I know in America it's much, much more expensive, but I still have the privilege of being over here in Europe, and we have the possibility to buy some spirits much, much cheaper over here than in the States. At least if it's not re-imported bourbons. Bourbons that have been imported here at a ridiculous price sometimes. All right, on the nose. I understand why Daniel loves this whiskey. I really like this whiskey. Now, I sometimes watch American football, sometimes I watch NASCAR or Formula One, even sometimes I watch European soccer football. And often the team wins that makes the least mistakes. It's not the best playing team, it's the team that makes the least mistakes. And that's what this Longmorn 16 for me is. This whiskey is not fabulously wow, but it's perfectly made. There's no mistakes. There's nothing wrong with this whiskey. It's exactly how a good, great whiskey from the Speyside should be. Now, it says here on the box, I'm doing a lot of reading today, I know. This exceptionally rich and intensive single malt is matured for at least 16 years in a combination of highly prized ex-sherry, American oak, and traditional oak casks, refill casks. All right, so we have first fill, probably American oak. We have refilled, and we have ex-sherry in here. Everything the heart needs to have a great whiskey. 16 years of age, wonderfully composed. One thing Chivas Regal / Pernod Ricard can do is they can take different casks and actually make something better than the individual parts. Look at Chivas Regal 18, look at Chivas Regal 21, look at Chivas Regal 25. And that's one of the reasons why we don't have very much Longmorn 16 as well, is the stocks that they do have, they need for their blends. They need for the flagship expressions. Now, one last thing, and I'll try this. This was made basically 2000. All right, it was bottled 2016. 16 years earlier was 2000. What did the whiskey industry look like in the year 2000? Now, first of all, not that many people drank whiskey as they drink today. I did not drink whiskey in the year 2000. I was old enough to. Some of my viewers are like, year 2000, I was basically 5 years old. Could be. All right. But no, I was old enough to drink, but I didn't drink. I drank wine. Yeah, I did not drink whiskey. That's something I've actually done the last 10, to be more exact, the last 6 years. And it's just not me. It's China, it's Japan, it's South America, it's Africa, it's North America. All these countries all over the world have started drinking whiskey. There's a real whiskey boom out there. And so we have to remember what happened 20 years before 2000. That was the 1980s. What happened in the 1980s in Scotland? They shut down all these distilleries because there was a whiskey loch. A loch means a sea, a lake, and there was just too much whiskey and not enough people buying it. So in the year 2000, we started increasing our production a tiny little bit. Same thing happened in Japan, by the way. Same thing happened in America with bourbon and so on. And we were like, okay, what are we going to do? We can go back up to levels maybe, but And so they're very, very, very cautious of producing too much whiskey in the 2000s because of the experience they had in the 1980s. They still had stock back then, yeah? You could buy this 20 years ago, the 16-year-old, for a third of the price we're paying today. And now we have the problem that we have more people buying it and we produce less than we should have 16, 20 years ago, and now we don't have enough. And whiskey is not a product you can snap your fingers and have a 16-year-old, 18-year-old, 21-year-old product there. You have to wait the generation before you can get it. And that's really, really a big problem. And that's going to be very, very evident in the next years with prices. Irish whiskey, aged Irish whiskey, almost a thing that you will not see anymore unless it's triple or four-figure digit bottles. Japanese whiskey, age statements, can't find it anymore. American whiskey, maybe we have a 9, sometimes we have a 12, but anything older than that is very difficult and only a few. Even in Scotch, you're going to have the problem that there will be less and less of the old stuff available for a price we are, at least I am willing to pay, which means under 100 euros per bottle. And so if you do find a Longmorn 16, buy it. If it's a price you can afford, buy it. Open it, drink it, share it, enjoy it. This is a solid B plus whiskey for me. Hmm. Hmm. The honey sweetness, the caramel, stewed pears, stewed apples, a tiny, tiny little bit of cinnamon in there. This is the quintessential Speyside whiskey experience. If for someone to ask me what's your favorite Speyside whiskey, Longmorn 16. Can you buy it? Can you find it? Probably not. Sorry. It's so good. And now we're coming to value for money. If you can find it for 100 euros or less, I would give it a C, which means, hey, if you can afford it, go out and buy it. I guarantee the price will not be as cheap as it is today in 3 years from now. If you find it for 200 euros, which I've seen online, pass. Don't buy it. All right, go for something else. But this is something, if you can find an old dusty someplace, if you can find a store that has a 16-year-old Longmorn someplace and it's at a price around the 100 euro mark, I can only say buy, enjoy, open, and just share with your fellow friends. That's so good. It's exactly what we would like. It's exactly what we need for a very good Speyside whiskey. Is there peat in there? No. Is there any type of edges or corners, or does it have its elbows out? No. This is the finest gentleman understatement type of Scottish whiskey that I just love and adore. And it's going to become a lot more difficult to find. This has that certain funk going on in there. I'm not talking about Springbank funk. I'm talking about that old whiskey, that old type of whiskey, and it's still there. And this is fabulous. All right, so the Craigellachie, which I love, is not equivalent to this. This has some corners, some sharpness, a little bit of I licked the copper wire moment. And this is just much, much more refined than this. Very near to my heart. I still love that flavor profile, especially the finish. But this is better. And now I understand why Daniel Whittington loves this whiskey. And if you want to do someone a favor, this is the one to go for. WhiskyJason here. My question of the day: what bottle could actually be a adequate replacement if I can't find a Longmorn 16? I don't care about the age statement. I care about the flavor profile. I care about the price. I care about the experience. What other whiskeys out there, probably from Scotland, probably a single malt, probably something that's not it's not sherried. There is sherry in there, but it's not a sherried whiskey. This is the quintessential Speyside, wonderful, old leathery type of moment, long echo in your mouth. Very, very great finish. What whiskey could you recommend instead of that if I couldn't find this ever again? What would be the alternative? I'm open to any suggestions because I'm not going to pay 200 for this in the future, but I will try to find a bottle for 100. Whiskey Jason here. All the best. See you soon. Bye bye.